Think about the phrase civic responsibility. For a long time, that meant keeping your head down and looking after your immediate neighborhood. It meant obeying local laws, voting for the city council, and paying taxes for the roads you drive on. But the device in your pocket connects you to supply chains, economies, and conflicts halfway across the planet. When information and goods cross oceans in seconds, your local community expands to include the people manufacturing your phone and the servers hosting your data. This chart highlights a striking demographic divide. Surveys show that 38% of teens still believe their country should look after itself and leave the rest of the world to fend for itself. It's a mindset that treats borders as impenetrable walls. Look closely at major institutions and universities today, though, and you see the opposite approach. They are actively shifting their focus, requiring students to engage in international service projects and global impact studies, rather than simply fulfilling local volunteer quotas. Living in a heavily networked society means local apathy has global consequences. When you sit out the conversation, you cast a quiet vote for the way things currently operate. One way people counter that apathy is by pooling their resources. An individual donating an hour of time or a few dollars might not seem like much, but when those efforts are channeled through dedicated nonprofit organizations, the scale of impact multiplies across borders. Take these high school students from Viking, Alberta. They partnered, or twinned, their school directly with Malapo High School in Lesotho, moving beyond letter writing to organize targeted fundraising for their African peers. The geography and resources in Lesotho present steep challenges. More than 30% of children there are orphans. The HIV infection rate is exceptionally high, and life expectancy hovers around 31 years. Education funding here is an urgent lifeline. A bake sale in a snowy Canadian town can directly finance textbooks in a landlocked nation. Organizational networks allow everyday citizens to bypass geographic barriers and alter the trajectory of a community thousands of miles away. Social aid tackles the symptoms, but civic duty also means engaging the political structures that govern those lives. Democracy requires constant maintenance. It degrades without active, deliberate participation. While citizens in established democracies might debate the inconvenience of waiting in line at the polls, hundreds of thousands of citizens in places like Hong Kong have been taking to the streets, actively marching to secure basic universal suffrage. This poster is part of a customized voter education toolkit. Organizations like Elections Canada take the mechanics of their stable voting systems and adapt them to local laws and customs abroad, helping developing nations register voters and secure their ballot boxes. A functioning political system gives you a secure platform. Part of your political responsibility is using that stability to support those trying to build fair representation in their own countries. Then we have the economic sphere. Transnational corporations control capital flows that dwarf the GDP of many nations. Because they span multiple countries, their business practices instantly impact global quality of life. These companies face mounting pressure to trace their supply chains back to the source. The responsibility falls on them to ensure the factories manufacturing their goods pay decent wages and maintain rigorous safety standards, rather than exploiting the lowest bidder. Corporate duty extends to systemic ethics, too. When business leaders like Fluor Corporation CEO Alan Boakman mandate anti-corruption policies, they target practices like bribery that drain an estimated 3% of the entire world's gross domestic product. If executives ignore that duty, the consequences become highly visible. In Myanmar, foreign corporate investment directly enriched an oppressive military junta, funding an army that relied on forced labor and arbitrary detention to maintain control over its population. Where you direct your money determines which global systems survive. Economic duty means ensuring capital actively drives human development, instead of subsidizing human rights abuses. The scale of these problems makes governments and corporations seem untouchable. But these massive entities cannot address global issues effectively without a shared partnership with civil society, meaning you. We often visualize power as a rigid pyramid, with a helpless individual crushed at the bottom, while elites command from the top. But this model cracks under its own weight. Re-globalization inverts the structure. It views civil society as a massive foundation pushing energy upward. Citizens and consumers dictate the terms, regulating the institutions resting above them. Governments and transnational corporations only exist and operate by the permission of the communities they inhabit. When the community withdraws that permission, the giants have to pivot. Every massive shift in foreign policy or corporate ethics traces back to a collection of individual choices. If you research a company's labor practices and put their product back on the shelf, that decision registers. Multiply that by thousands of aware consumers, and a simple choice at the supermarket forces a multi-billion-dollar supply chain to adapt its practices. The globalized system is highly sensitive to input. Your daily actions, the votes you cast, and the dollars you spend act as the primary catalysts for systemic justice. You live in an interconnected network where isolation is mathematically impossible. The only question left is what you will choose to do with your civic responsibilities tomorrow.